The Amalfi Coast is one of those rare places that actually lives up to every photo you've ever seen. But most people mess up their trip before they even get there. They stay in the wrong town, they waste half a day stuck on a bus, or they spend 2 nights in Naples because they think they have to. You don't. And I've got a slightly controversial opinion about that, which I'll share at the end. Today I'm going to show you the best areas to stay on the Amalfi Coast and tell you how they're different from each other. Let's start with the place you've already seen 1,000 photos of. If you've ever seen a photo of the Amalfi Coast, you've probably seen Positano. Here we have the colorful houses cascading down the cliff, and we've got the beach, the boats and the narrow alleys. And I can confirm it looks exactly like that in real life, possibly even better than in the photos. What nobody tells you though is that Positano is vertical. It's literally built on a cliff. So everything here involves stairs, lots and lots of stairs. So if you have mobility issues, this is a tough town. If you're fine with stairs, just wear proper shoes and plan around it. You know, maybe book a hotel either near the top where the bus stops or near the bottom by the beach and the harbor. Being in the middle means that you're climbing in both directions all day long. One tip that will save you a lot of pain: if you arrive by boat down by the pier, there are actually porters down there who will take your bag straight up to your hotel for a fee, of course. On this trip I'm staying at this lovely little hotel where they serve you breakfast in the room. A wee bit nippy in the early morning here in April, but honestly still an awesome experience because the Positano view is incredible. It literally is as pretty as in the photos. A 10-minute walk from the main pier, you go via this little secret, very secret path, and you'll end up at this incredible little beach that always has way fewer people than the main beach. Now, the main beach, Spiaggia Grande, is beautiful, and in peak season it's also packed. You can rent a sunbed and umbrella for about 20 to 25 euros per person, or just lay your towel in the free section. In the tiny alleys here in Positano, you can shop everything from limoncello to linen shirts and sundresses. And the restaurant terraces stacked up the hillsides are where you'll spend your evenings. Maybe even with an Aperol Spritz and a lovely sea view and just the sun going down. That is the Positano experience that people travel from all over the world to come and experience, and it is quite nice. But I'll be honest with you, Positano is expensive. A basic lunch for 2 with a glass of wine can easily run 80 to 100 euros. Hotels are the priciest on the entire coast, and in July and August this stunning town is a bit overcrowded. And in the age of Instagram, this is very much a see and be seen kind of place. So who is Positano for? Couples, honeymooners, and anyone who wants the Amalfi Coast dream and doesn't mind paying for it. This is the town that gave the entire coast its name, and when you arrive by boat and see the cathedral rising up from the main square, you get why. The beach in Amalfi is small and with rocks instead of sand, but the water's clear and it's a great place to go and hang out with a takeaway sandwich and a couple of beers in the summertime. Amalfi was once one of Italy's 4 great maritime republics, right alongside Venice, Genoa and Pisa. But beyond the history, what's it actually like to stay here? Well, first of all, you need to know that the town is compact. There's just one main street running from the harbour and beach area up through a narrow valley with little streets branching off. Obviously, when you're here, you'll be walking all the way from the port to the end of town, but make sure you also walk a bit away from the main drag and the super tourist restaurants. The side alleys are usually where prices drop and quality goes up. The main piazza in front of the Duomo is where everyone ends up in the evening. And I would highly recommend getting here and grabbing a beer or a gelato and sitting here on these steps and just chilling. And if you want to eat at any of the establishments down there or drink, do check their ratings before you turn up and just sit down, because some of these are proper tourist traps. When I stayed in Amalfi a couple of years ago, we got a very late night reservation over there at Taverna degli Apostoli, and that was an amazing place, so I can wholeheartedly recommend that. So who is Amalfi for? If you want a central base with the most transport connections, Amalfi is hard to beat. The downside is that it gets absolutely rammed in the high season, especially during the day. But if you're staying here, you get to see it in the morning and the late night where all the day trippers are leaving. So that's one of the best things around here, to be honest. If you follow that road up there, after a 20-minute walk, you get to Atrani, and this is known as the smallest town in all of Italy. During the day, it's one of the quieter spots on the coast, and most tourists are just, passing through on their way to Amalfi, and they don't even know that Atrani exists. So if you want the Amalfi Coast without the Amalfi Coast prices and crowds, Atrani might be the smartest pick on the list. One more I want to mention quickly, Ravello. It sits about 350 meters above sea level up in the hills behind Amalfi. So there are no beaches and no harbor, so it's a completely different experience from the coastal towns down here on the actual coast. But what Ravello has is two of the most spectacular villa gardens in Italy, Villa Ruffolo and Villa Cimbrone. The Terrace of Infinity at Villa Cimbrone is one of those viewpoints that just makes you stop talking, honestly. If you want total peace, long lunches and incredible views without the beach crowds, Ravello is a beautiful place to stay. And that has just been confirmed by my driver from Naples who took me down here. He loves Ravello as well. Maiori has the longest beach on the entire Amalfi Coast, a full kilometer of actual sand and some rocks. It also has a proper seafront promenade with restaurants and cafes, which is surprisingly rare on this coast. Most towns here have tiny pebble beaches squeezed between cliffs. Maiori feels different. The town also looks more modern than the others because a flood in 1954 destroyed most of the old city centre, and so it had to be rebuilt. That means it doesn't have the classic postcard look, but it also means wider streets, more breathing room, and a town that's actually built for people and not just looking at. Here in Maiori, you'll find proper supermarkets, bakeries and restaurants where you may actually sit next to some local Italians. So Maiori has that slow, relaxed, local Italian summer feeling that you may not get in Positano or Amalfi. Up on the hill, there's the Church of Santa Maria a Mare, I think, with a beautiful dome you can spot from everywhere in town. Walk up there for the view, and from the church you can start one of the best short hikes on the coast. The Path of the Lemons. It's about 2 kilometers through lemon groves with sea views, ending in Minori, which we'll talk about in a second. Who is Maiori for? Well, families, anyone on a budget, and people who want a real beach holiday on the coast. Hotels here are cheaper compared to Positano and Amalfi, and you can actually reach Amalfi by ferry in about 10 minutes. So Maiori may not be the prettiest town on the coast, especially on a grey day like today, but it is a great base. By the way, just a quick mention, right next door, literally a 5-minute ferry ride or a 20-minute walk along the Path of the Lemons. Even smaller and quieter than Maiori, you'll find Minori. Minori is also known as the City of Taste, and the pasta here is supposed to be some of the best on the coast. Minori is one of the calmest places to stay on the Amalfi Coast, so maybe check hotels over there out if you want to stay somewhere very quiet. technically, Sorrento isn't on the Amalfi Coast. It's on the other side of the Sorrentine Peninsula, facing the Bay of Naples. We can see the volcano Vesuvius over there. But I think Sorrento is a great holiday town, and a lot of people base themselves here for an Amalfi Coast trip, so I need to talk a bit about it in this video. The first time I was in Sorrento, I was a bit blown away. Where the towns on the Amalfi Coast are tiny, there's a bit more space up here in Sorrento. So even though it is a massive tourist hotspot, I won't lie there, you can still wander off the main bits and have a bit more space around you.
The big advantage of Sorrento is connections. It has a train station, so you can get the Circumvesuviana line that connects you directly to Naples and Pompeii. That opens up options that no town on the actual coast can match. So you can do day trips to Pompeii, get the ferry to Capri, take the ferry or bus down to Positano or Amalfi. You can even get a boat over to Naples too, so everything connects through Sorrento.
The tiny streets of Sorrento in here are very cute, I must say. And the other big advantage here, Sorrento is flat, well, mostly once you get up here. If you're traveling with kids or older family members, not having to climb hundreds of stairs just to get to your hotel is a massive selling point. Hotels here are also cheaper than Positano and often cheaper than Amalfi. So who is Sorrento for? First-timers who want a practical, well-connected base, families, and anyone combining the Amalfi Coast with Pompeii, Capri, and maybe Naples. The downside is that you're not waking up on the Amalfi Coast itself. On my first trip to this part of Italy, I stayed a few days in Sorrento before heading down to the actual Amalfi Coast itself, and that's an itinerary I can wholeheartedly recommend. Okay, so here's the take I mentioned at the start, and I'm gonna try and speak quietly so nobody hears me around here. Because a lot of travel guides and videos will tell you that you absolutely must spend a couple of nights in Naples, in Napoli, when you visit the Amalfi Coast. And I don't necessarily agree. Napoli is pure chaos, and to be honest, I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. It is a bit of a weird atmosphere. The Amalfi Coast is colorful, romantic, and relaxed. Naples is kind of the opposite of that. And if you only have 5 to 7 days, like most people do, I don't think you should spend 2 of them in a place that feels like that just because it is nearby. So here's what I'd suggest instead. Fly into Naples, get a transfer straight to the coast, or take the train down to Sorrento and spend your time where you actually came to be. And then if you have a few hours before you fly back home, grab a pizza here in Napoli, in Naples, and soak up the atmosphere and the chaos. That's what I'm doing today, and the pizza down here was amazing, but I'm also kind of ready to leave now. So don't feel like you have to make it to Naples on your trip. And just so you know, the train from Naples to Rome is only 1 hour and 15 minutes. I hope this helped you plan your trip to the Amalfi Coast. If you've been and you're just watching for the fun of it, let me know where you stayed and if you'd go back to that place or pick somewhere else. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and maybe like the video, and you know, ciao ragazzi.